King and Queen of the Ring is coming up on May 25th in Saudi Arabia. It'll be another afternoon show here on the East Coast like Backlash was. But if the Saudis get their way, they may be getting a much bigger event soon. Before I get into the tournaments, I got to talk about this. ESPN ran a story this week with quotes from the chairman of the Saudi General Entertainment Authority, noting that an enhancement to their existing agreement with WWE will be announced later this month. I would imagine that'll be at the King and Queen of the Ring show. And specifically, he said, they are looking to bring the Royal Rumble or Wrestlemania to Saudi Arabia. And neither of those two events have ever been held outside of North America. The first WrestleMania was held back in 1985. First Royal Rumble was back in 1988. And they have always been held either in the US or in Canada. Even SummerSlam only had the one show at Wembley Stadium, and that was way back in 1992. So that would be a big deal if they decided to do that. 5 years ago, I would have said absolutely not. There's no way that they would ever do it. But under endeavor, and with how much money these international places are paying for these shows, I think it's very possible that they at least get a Royal Rumble. You know, they already had the greatest Royal Rumble. I don't know why they would want the regular one. They already had the greatest. Now I could see them getting the Royal Rumble proper. See how that goes. If it goes well, WrestleMania could be a possibility in the next several years. You know, we know the Saudis are willing to pay. Reportedly, they pay WWE $50 million for each show that they run there. That's twice a year, $100 million for 2 shows. Imagine what they would pay for a WrestleMania. I don't know what all the independent promotions would do, though, since they usually piggyback off WrestleMania in whatever the host city is. I don't think House of Glory is going to run Riyadh, but I've got my passport ready just in case. I'll tell you what, if the Saudis get a WrestleMania before the UK does, the Brits are going to have a meltdown. Absolute meltdown. They are not going to be happy about that. You know how long they've been waiting for a WrestleMania for? Or that one poor bastard who used to be in the crowd, holding up the sign that says Vancouver wants WrestleMania? How do you think he's going to feel if the Saudis get it before he does? It's all about how much money they can make. That's it. That's the most important thing to them, is making as much money as they can. They always say they're open for business. Triple H says we're open for business. Look at Backlash last weekend. On a crowd of 11,000 people, they set their all-time arena gate record. They've already set over 50 wrestling gate records so far this year. So far, we're not even halfway into the year yet. But that was their biggest ever on a crowd of 11,000 plus. And they have gotten far more people than that into arenas over the years, let alone the stadium shows that they do. So how did they do that? By charging outrageously high ticket prices. That's how. The ringside seats went for the equivalent of $3,000 US. But even the so-called cheap seats that were still left, I can't even say cheap, but cheaper seats that were still left a couple of months before the show, I don't know what they were going for the week of. But I saw single tickets that were listed for the equivalent of $1,000. And those were the cheaper seats. You know, even if they slash them to half that, that's still a lot of money per ticket. A lot of people, a lot of families, they get priced out of these things because of the demand. Unfortunately, that's what happens. If the demand is there, then you can afford to sell them for that much money. But a lot of people end up being shut out, and yet they make the announcement on the show last weekend in front of the live crowd that they set the all-time gate record, and the people slurp it up like they own stock in TKO. You know, on Friday, the BBC, they ran a story about fan backlash to ticket prices for Clash at the Castle in Scotland next month. Some of the fans they interviewed, they're calling these prices extortion. The lowest ticket price listed right now for the show is the equivalent of $420 US, which makes it the most expensive get-in price for a show in the history of the company. When you have this much pent-up demand, you can get away with it because you know you're going to sell the building out. You know, it's a 14,000-seat arena. They're not running a stadium for this show. But that night, when they announced that they have now broken the record set in France for the largest gate that they've ever done, it's going to be very funny to hear everybody cheer and go crazy. It's like getting smacked in the face and then thanking the person who smacked you. Setting an attendance record, I can see. I can see having pride in that. Okay, yeah, we set the all-time attendance record. But a gate record is just a very bizarre thing to cheer for.